Alafia Mandala, Abibi Fahudi is your favorite warrior, Black Panther in the building again with my brother Baba Ogundiran. We're doing our Isheshe interview series, continuing that route today. We're going over the Orisha Ashun. Baba Ogundiran, what's going on? How you feeling today, brother?
A little worn out, but I'm doing all right.
It happens. It certainly happens. Give me 1 second. Everybody tuning in, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all of the support. I truly do. And we wanted to do Ashun because, not only is she, very essential to the Yoruba tradition, but she's also a very popular divinity worldwide, has one of the, most popular celebrations, festivals, Oduns in Yoruba land. Annually, people come from all over to go to Oshogbo to pay homage and praise Ashun. So, Yoruba land. I certainly wanted to do this for the people that are very interested in her literature and getting a perspective of how she's seen in traditional Orisha worship. So this is something that, we thought was important. So we are putting it out. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Baba Ogundiran, who is Ashun from an Isheshe perspective?
Well, to put it simply, she is the divinity of the Ashun River. The Ashun River that's in Nigeria. She is the Yoruba divinity of the river that bears her name. If you put it simply, she's a river divinity. Things that she might be associated with, such as fertility. Give me a second. I need to turn my brain on. Elegance, beauty, riches. She's known to pamper her children with these things as well.
Fertility, riches, elegance. These are things. Is she kind of like the symbol for like how I say like an archetype for like what a woman, you know what I'm kind of saying? Kind of like Ogun is like an archetype for a male. Would you say that she has some of those same responsibilities for female?
That's a very interesting question. I actually would not know that, but that's actually something that I would care to know. I do know she's kind of, in a sense, given the credit for like, that's what we would call in this country like women's liberation. She's a very powerful divinity among women and highly respected. She does not quite appear the same way in Nigeria among the Yoruba people as she does quite in the diaspora. There is a little differences. In the diaspora, she tends to be kind of more pushed off as like someone who jumps from man to man, maybe a little promiscuous. I've even seen places where it has gone as far as like drawings of her kind of like dressed as a prostitute, so it's a little different there. She's very highly respected there, and she's a divinity that a lot of women look up to, that pray to for various different things.
Understood. Is Ashun from a particular town?
From what I understand, though Oshogbo is where she resides now, or where she eventually landed or ended up, she's not originally from this area. She's actually originally from Ekiti, from what I understand. Because the Ashun River, if my memory serves me correct, starts in Ekiti territory. Then, filters through and goes down. And there's a lot of literature that actually states about Oshun traveling out of there into the Ejesha lands, and then finally ending up of what we would know today as Oshogbo.
Oh wow! So she's well traveled, as she sounds, but her home would be in Iketi.
Her origins would be. It's kind of like think of someone like a child that moves out from home. Their origins, they might grown up in a certain place, but they might find their way somewhere else and establish that this is their home now. This is where they're going to reside. This is where they're going to be. This is where they want to be. So though she might have came from a certain area, she's definitely now one of the main places, if not the main place, is Oshogbo.
Somewhere Baba Popola is smiling.
Funny. I just caught on to that.
Yeah. For those of you that don't get that, don't worry about it. It's a Baba Lao that's very famous that advocates for Iketi origin of numerous Orishas. So that's what that was about.
I do want to say this. Oshun's worship is found in several areas throughout Nigeria. It shouldn't be thought of that she is only in Oshogbo. That would be a very, very big misconception. A very wrong thing. She is all over Nigeria. So we just know of Oshogbo because of mainly because of the Oshun Grove.
The Grove, the festival, the pomp,
the
pageant,
right.
All that comes with a huge statue in Oshogbo of her. Yeah, and that's why she's associated.
But there's plenty of other places that, value her just as well, have their own celebrations for her. Customs may be a little different, but, it's still the same divinity.
I actually know of one that is not of Yoruba origin. The Ashan people in Nigeria, they have Oshun as well in their tradition. She takes on a few different roles, but it's spelled exactly the same. And, she's depicted the same. So you're definitely, I know that you're correct when you say she's all over Nigeria.
Yeah.
What are some of the colors associated with Oshun?
When it comes to dress, so we're just going to refer to colors instead of insignias. Or do you want me to talk about both?
The very next question is insignias. So
okay, so I kind of just combined it into two. So typically, the colors you see Oshun wear, if you want to relate it to particular colors, it's typically white, yellow, and green. The Oshun can be with various different colors. It's more about, at least from my understanding, at least following her literature, and when it said to her about Oriki, Oshun likes more quality stuff or more expensive stuff. So if you're wearing something, one of the nicer closses or one of the lacer closses, that's fine as well. It shouldn't just be thought it has to be these three colors. It's obvious when you look at the Oshun shrine in the palace. You see various colors and various different color cloths in the palace. But a lot of times you'll see her devotees, wear white, especially outside of Oshogbo. You see a lot of Oshun devotees wear white. But inside of Oshogbo, definitely yellow, green, a combination of yellow, green, and white. Part of this, I think, derives from her insignia, at least the ilekes that she has. So the one that's all yellow is called Oyinde. And it's an all yellow ileke. It's typically with smaller beads, typically, that I've seen. But this is what the yellow necklace is called. And there's a green necklace, but it's not a green color. Like, it's actually a bead. It's called ebolo. And it's actually a green bead. It's a type of bead that the Oshun devotees wear. But nowadays, they've basically turned it into a green bead. Does that make sense?
Okay.
But originally the ebolo is a type of bead, not just a green colored bead.
Okay. Okay. And we don't really hear about the white or the green so much in the diaspora. We usually only hear about gold or yellow. So that's a very important part of that information right there in relation to Ashun. Because yeah, if you go into any botanica and you ask for a green bead or a white, and you say it's for Ashun, they probably look at you crazy. So very, very good stuff right there. Um, as far as her implements, are there any specific implements related to Ashun?
There are several implements that are related to Oshun. Ashun. Probably one of the most, or her main implement per se, are the river stones, the otaodo, the river stones that that are placed in her pot. Of course, there are other things that are in there. You can have a brass pair of edon that may represent her, or that may go in the pot because of her association through some literature with Ogboni, and then several various brass type of objects, as she is a lover of brass and normally pampers her children in brass. The wearing of brass actually attracts the blessings of Oshun.
Mm, wow. And you said that she is related to Ogboni. Can you briefly kind of give a synopsis for the people that don't know what Ogboni is?
Ogboni is a society that was trying to think. It's how we would relate it to our judicial system, I guess. It would serve a little more than just the judicial system and the courts and everything, but it was a major part of how the government ran and how the delegation of power. Um, Nowadays, they more have reform Ogboni, because one of the things that they did when they first came in to Nigeria is destroy like a lot of the Ogboni societies because they were very crucial to the people. And then from what I understand, well, Ogboni, first of all, is a very secret thing. But I believe at one time the Ogboni were charged with trying to, how should I say, trying to make sure the religion or the religions of the land stayed intact. And they deal a lot with the earth. So the Ogboni is actually very, very important. Um, but the those pair of brass edon, from what I understand, are a way of symbolizing that she had membership or does have membership in that necessarily society.
Wow.
Now, these are not always in her pot. Some traditions may give it, some traditions may not. Different traditions of Oshun may do different things when accordance of what is given, but there's definitely going to be river stones as this is her main object.
Mm. Okay.
Just a side note, even collective amount of brass can be worshipped as Oshun.
Mm. So kind of the same perspective, like a collective amount of iron can be worshipped as Ogun, a collective amount of brass can be worshipped as Ashun.
Right.
Uh, is it
Now,
just like is it just like Ogun with like the iron has to be around people? Is that the same with the brass?
I don't know that. And I don't want to try to assume that either. I don't know. I just know that, no, of course, the brass has to go through some type of consecration process. It's just not like you gather a bunch of brass and, it's Oshun in a sense, has to go through a process. But, a collective amount of brass can be worshipped as Oshun. I've actually seen pots of Oshun that are just brass.
Wow. So with what you just said, we've seen this movie before. Family, you just heard out his mouth how important the Ogboni was, how Ashun is a member of that, and how that was one of the first things that our invaders, our colonizers, our oppressors tried to tear down because of its importance. So that's an important part of history that I didn't want it to be overlooked. And speaking of other membership that Ashun may have, what is her relation to the Iyami or the Aje, as some people call
This would really depend on how you want to look at it, or it could be all of them. But she does have a very close relationship with them. Some say that she's even the leader of them. She is definitely one herself.
Mm.
So that's probably the best way I can relate the Ajay uh, to her. I will say I don't want to speak too much about the Ajay, but most people's conception of the Ajay, or what commonly known here as witches, um, are not what people really think they are. It's not related to European witchcraft in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't look like that. Um, so, you have a lot of people really out here giving a lot of information on Iyami or claiming to be witches without really understanding what they truly are. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into that, but yeah, you have a lot of people not truly understanding what Ajay are, what those powerful beings are.
Mm.
But it is known that, like I said, there's literature that may state that Ashun is the leader of them. There's a particular story in Ifa where she sets the world basically upside down because they left her out, of the creating or getting the earth ready for man. And, she caused a lot of problems. In some literature, it says that she is the head of the Yami Oshorogan, which were the ones that kind of helped, her kind of ruin the works that they were trying to perform until, they got together. I don't want to go into that story, but basically they got together, went back to Olodumare, said what was wrong. It's because you left out, Ashun, you left out the only woman. And then after that, some things were done and then things kind of went back to normal. But the Ajay themselves are very, very powerful being, whether it's in a destructive force or whether it's a force to help. It just really depends on what side of it that you're on, but they're not anything to really toy with.
Mm. Got it. Got it. Got it. What's Ashun's relation to cowrie shell or cowrie shell divination?
Well, Kari shells in general, she has a relationships to Kari shells in general, them being like a symbol of wealth and money. So a lot of times you may even find Kari shells in her container, just like loose Kari shells. There's a lot of crowns and Oriki that states of her having, Kari shell crowns. So the idea of Kari shells is related to her. In the sense of the Erindi Ogun, the 16 Kari shell divination, um, it is said, it depends on which idea you want to go with. In Ifa, it's stated that Orumila is the one that gave Ashun the 16 Kari shell divination, taught it to her, passed it on, and then through her, the first person she taught it to, my memory serves me correctly, is Obatala. And then, from there, it spread out to some of the other Odisha. Excuse me. I would like to make something known. Not all Odisha received Kari shell divination. Not all of them learned Kari shell divination. When we talk about Oshun spreading it out to other Odisha. The other kind of thought of this is there's a verse from Ofun, Mewa, and the Kari shells. I believe that starts off in English. It starts off something like Ofun marks it with chalk. Ofun marks it with camwood. Ofun decorates it brightly with Madi wool. But in this verse, it talks about the origins of seashell divination as it was Obatala that gave it to Oshun. So depending on which way you want to look at it, but you always see the connection between Ashun and Obatala in either story, because either Obatala giving it to her, or you have Ifa giving it to Ashun, and then Ashun giving it to Obatala. So they're kind of both very close. And there's another story as well that I don't want to get into, but so there are different stories about this.
Got it.
But that's her association. In one, she's basically given it to, well, in either one, she's given it to by somebody else and told to basically use it, to with the clients that she has and that's coming to her.
Okay. What role does sexuality and sensuality play with Ashun?
Now, this is just my opinion here. Due to what I know as far as some of the Oriki, I would say she This is kind of hard because I'm trying to go off literature and not necessarily have my own kind of opinions to it.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of answer that question. So, okay, like, so in a few instances, like, where she might be related to like beauty and grace, you know, how that might play with sexuality, and that she's described sometimes as a gazelle. What's it? Not Egbin. So, and a gazelle is thought to be a very beautiful and elegant animal. You know, there's other statements in her literature that talk about her liking more. I don't want to say fancier, but more like expensive cloth. More of more expensive things. So I guess there's some sense of like beauty or having more sense of attractive things or higher quality items in a sense. But to answer that, through literature, I don't think I can give a very good explanation or give a good answer for that, for what I remember of her literature.
Okay. Fair enough. Is Ashun the Orisha of love?
I'm going to have to say no. I think this is a quality picked up from Venus, or Aphrodite that may, people kind of bond them together. I have found no literature, and it's not to say it does not exist. I'm not an expert on Oshun by any matter, but I have not found any literature in the years that I've been reading about her and talking to people that state anything really about love. And then within the culture, it's kind of unrealistic because relationships weren't really based in love in antiquity. They're more based on family arrangements, and bringing together families. So I'm not saying love didn't exist, but I have not found that type of literature, any type of that, speaking of love, in our literature at all. Or nothing even close, even. Other than, I guess you can say, if there's the love for her children or pampering her children, but outside of that, no, or at least none that I'd be able to find.
Interesting. That's kind of a common thing that we hear in the diaspora, mentioned with Ashun. So I definitely wanted to clear that up.
I mean, the beauty is definitely there.
Oh, absolutely.
But the love, I'm kind of skeptical of it.
Indeed. Is the Orisha known as Eshu? Is that Ashun's child?
In some literature, yes, Eshu is described as Ashun's child. Not in all, but in some, yes. Matter of fact, there's various literatures where you can find Eshu, just as a sidebar, where Eshu appears to be the child of other divinities as well. Oh, and just on a sidebar from that, Ashun and Obatala, they spent a lot of time together. They were married at one time, at least how the oral literature states it. But between them two, it said that they had the most children amongst her and any other relationship within the other divinity. So they had a lot of children together. They end up splitting because of Obatala kept breaking her taboos.
We've heard that story before.
And several other places. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So don't break your wife's taboos. Let's see. We already kind of went over that. Is there a proper greeting for Ashun worshippers?
Yes, there are. You guys forgive me. I'm a little tired. Didn't get any sleep last night. The one off the top of my head, I do know where you can find some. In Fama's Green Book, Fundamental Book, there's a small section in there. I think it says Kiki for greetings, and they give a list of like 4 or 5 for her.
Okay.
But the Oreyeo, is one you often hear. But there are others.
And what is that? Do you remember what that refers to? Oreyeo?
Honestly, off the top of my head, I want to say like Hail the Benevolent Good Mother, but that might not be a direct translation.
Okay. But I know Yeye is mother. Absolutely.
Right.
So,
and that's actually a good. Yeye is actually a word that was picked up when she traveled through Ijesha lands. So Yeye is an Ijesha word, an Ijesha Yoruba word that was picked up and brought into other places. Mm-hmm. And this is why they use it for Oshun. That's why you hear it a lot more than you hear Iya.
That is. And then, I hear Iya with Oshun. Right. Like, that makes sense.
And then a lot of times they'll use the Iya for like a title. So the Iya Oshun is actually a religious title instead of the Yeye Oshun. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah. But it shows her involvement and her time spent, within the Ijesha territory and going through those lands. Because she's also well worshipped in those lands as well.
So we see how, even something as simple as a greeting can bring one into geography class, because, you got to look and see where the Ijesha lands are, or as we mentioned earlier, where is Oshogbo? Where is Iketi? Where are these places? Those are very important things to know. Absolutely. Let's see. What are some reasons to worship Ashun?
Well, I mean, outside of just general what people would typically worship for, you can go to Oshun for typically anything. But some of the things that she's more known for, definitely one of them is for children, healing of barren women. Fertility, hands down, these are some of the major things that women come to her for, but also for other things. Riches is another thing. Protecting of one's children and family, to have good children, in a sense, even a sense to in a marketplace, business. There's several reasons why you would go to her, or would have a reason to go to her if you were trying to, let's say you're a hair platter in a sense, and you want blessings from Oshun for your business, or even for you if you're doing it like personally, because Oshun's profession was a hair platter. So there are some people that go into business, that might even receive Ashun or even get initiated Ashun just because of profession.
Interesting. And I just want to quickly shout out my brother at Dadadu TV. You can go on Instagram. I put his name in the comments and contact him about language courses. Brother is a native Nigerian that teaches people all over the world, and I hear good things about his language courses for the ones that are interested. Let's see. What would you call a priest of Ashun?
Generally, you can say Oloshun.
Oloshun.
The word would be Oni Ashun, but when you put it together, it becomes Oloshun. It's a general reference for anyone who is initiated to Ashun. The word itself can mean like one who possesses or has Ashun. It could mean one who makes Ashun or one who is Ashun, depending on context. But it's a general kind of way of saying someone is initiated. As far as priest, there are different titles, that different Egbe's or different Orisha societies will have. Sometimes there are like general names for priests. Sometimes there are specific names for priests that have different functions.
Interesting.
Like you have the Iwori Oshun. Then of course you have the Iya Oshun. These are, though they're priests, these are two particular type of priests that have some type of function within their own society or Egbe.
Interesting. And what do we call, being that all Orisha have their own literature, what do we call the literature of Ashun?
Pipe.
So Pipe Ashun. Pipe Ashun. So like like Pipe Shango and
Pipe, Yemonja. Yep, same word.
And their word Pipe means to call, from my understanding. So you're calling on the literature of Ashun, or calling Ashun herself. So that makes sense. Okay. We see a lot of depictions in the diaspora of the mirror instead of the brass fan with Ashun. Does the mirror have a Isheshe element, or is that something that came into play with our Lukumi and Regla de Ocho brothers and sisters?
I'm not quite sure when it came in. I'm going to have to say at one time it's foreign. It has to be because it's a mirror. So it came in at some time. I don't know if it's an Isheshe now. I've never seen it. That's not to say it doesn't exist there now. But typically in other African traditions, mirrors are very highly associated with water because of the reflection. So I can see why it's there, but I've never seen the fan itself in Isheshe. Now, I've definitely seen the abebe, the fan, the brass fan, for her, without a doubt. But I'm not quite sure about the mirror. I don't think so.
Interesting. I've always heard that Ashun is not, well, this is probably true of all Orisha, but particularly with Ashun, that you don't want to get on her quote unquote bad side or offend her. Is there any literature or things that you've come across that talks about that?
There's definitely literature that speaks about the destructive power of Oshun. Absolutely. Without a doubt. Without really getting into what is actually said in literature, let me kind of describe what the literature talks about so you can see how Oshun can be destructive. So typically when the river is fine, everything's right with it, it's calm, it's beneficial. Go there to get cooling water, drink, fish, whatever you need from it. But, if it decides to excessively rain hard and the river floods, it now becomes a destructive force. So there are plenty of literature stating, of her turning kind of into an overflowing river and men running from her, even the strong running from her. And there's a lot of references, because flooding, that devastation gets everywhere. You don't escape the water. So there is a lot of definitely within the literature, a lot of proof of that she can be a very destructive divinity. But with anything else, she's a very cooling and loving divinity in a sense. She's a very giving, warm type divinity. So, like most people, if you're kind of cool headed, loving, warm, normally the opposite of that normally tends to be terrifying. Or at least in my experience of life, I've always seen quiet, cool people, but when they get angry, they get really angry.
Mm-hmm.
They get angrier than most angry people that get angry. you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look at it. She's a very calm, cooling divinity. She's a cool divinity. But so if you take her outside of her nature, of course, she can be very destructive, very harmful. But that's typically, though it's in her literature, she's typically not. We typically don't focus on that. There are times for it, and it's definitely true to show, that every divinity has the capability of having some type of warrior aspect or being able to defend oneself. Every Orisha has it to some extent. But she is definitely not a weak divinity, and she's also not a manly divinity. Ashuna is very feminine. Like with Oya, though she's very feminine, elegant, there is a sense of type of this manly, and I hate to use the word energy, but what I mean by that is like if her man is going out the war, like Oya, at least the divinity would be like, okay, take the kids, I'm going with my husband, give me a gun. Whether her husband wants her to go or not, that's just who she is. I'm standing by him, take care of my kids. There's a sense of a warrior aspect up front within her nature. There isn't that, not up front with Oshun. She can get there, but it's not within her nature. I guess that is why when you take her outside of her nature, she becomes very destructive in a sense, But Oshun is a very elegant, very elegant divinity.
Okay. Can you briefly talk about Ashun's Grove in Oshogbo and the story of how that basically became her grove?
Okay. To the best of my memory, I'll try to remember because it's been a long time since of that information. I've read it and talked about it in any sense of length.
Okay.
But basically, at a time where I believe she was coming first into the grove, this is the time before even, I guess, Oshogbo was even there. There was no town there. This is just the grove. She's coming in this area. Well, for those who don't know, Oshogbo means Wizard's Grove. So if you're going to have a place named Wizard's Grove, obviously there's going to be wizards in the grove. That's why it's called Oshogbo. So these wizards, a lot of times, wizards sometimes get associated with Osain, and then sometimes Osain also plays a very big role within like groves and, because the leaves, the foliage, just it's who he is. So it's said that there was a major war or, battle that took place between the wizards in the grove and Ashun, or Osain and Ashun. Then what basically happened is Ashun ended up winning. And this is how she became in possession of the 16 lamps that they light every year for Oshogbo. Now, this is an older story. I've read other stories where it has since like changed. I'm not quite sure why they've changed it. But I'm not quite sure, but the story has to do with her defeating the wizards or Osain within that grove, and then taking, I guess, his symbol of power, which was the 16 lamps staff.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Wow. That's some powerful information about Ashun. My last question is, what is Ashun's relation to honey?
In the diaspora?
Okay, let me rephrase this question. Do you see her relation to honey in Isheshe?
As it appears in the diaspora, no. At least I've not experienced it. There doesn't seem to be that same connection with honey in Isheshe with Oshun as it, throughout the diaspora. Like in the diaspora, it's like every Oshun shrine you see is a bottle of honey. I've even seen some people have collective bottles of honey and say it's Ashun. So here they tend to have this big association with it. There it doesn't seem to be. I don't even see it listed as an offering sometimes. It's not to say that it can't be given, but it just doesn't seem to be there. That's not to say she has no. I'm not trying to say she has no association with it or she doesn't accept it, but definitely not on the level that it's here.
Okay, so it's a different concept,
right? Yeah, it's not here
versus in the continent.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times it's because of the one story we get that seems to be reenacted a lot of times during Bembes with the Ogun that's in the forest, and Ashun comes in with the honey in her hand and the fistful of honey in Ogun's mouth. I think a lot of that might promote this, but I've definitely have not seen it. And even a lot of the Ashun worshipers that I've known, I've asked. They're like, no, not really. Here, yes, but not really there.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. And it makes me think of something else. How important is children to Ashun?
Very. That's as simple as way I can sum that up. Very. It's one of the I forget what Odu it's in for Ifa, but it speaks about a time when Ashun was barren and she wanted to receive children. And now this might vary from tradition to tradition, but what ends up happening is the oracle ends up telling her that she does not need to make a sacrifice just for herself, but she needs to make a sacrifice on behalf of all barren women. So she ends up making the sacrifice, and she begins to give birth and whatnot. And I guess this is how she became, in a sense, the reason why all women come to her, or that are barren that come to her, to receive children, because at one time she was. And because that she made the sacrifice for all barren women, that she has this kind of ability to, cure barrenness.
Okay.
Well, and hold on, and that's another thing. When we're speaking of children, it is often said in her literature that she gives birth frequently and with ease, like an animal.
So kind of like how animals struggle, they just kind of
boom,
like birth.
Yeah. It's just part of the process. Have her children, get up, let's go. We're ready to move on to the next. So it does speak about that. Her ability to give to have children even with ease.
All right. We'll take some questions from the chat room now. Let me see if I missed any. I was trying to ask them as they go. Brother Gullah Juice wants to know if anybody know where I can get literature on Eshu. We actually did show on Eshu on this channel. So you can go back through the archives and you will see a dedicated show to Eshu, brother. I hope that will help you out. Any other questions from the chat? I see Black Star says, does it have to be a mirror? I guess that would be, that's something that we talked about earlier in regards to seeing it more in the diaspora. I wouldn't know. What about you, Babo Gundiran?
I'm not quite sure. What was the question?
Does it have to be a mirror? And first thing I think of, if it's not a mirror, then it's probably a Bebe or a Befe fan. Yeah.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be. Right. It's supposed to be a fan.
Yeah, it's the brass fan. So that's the best way that I would answer.
I'm in agreement with that. And it doesn't always have to be a brass fan. No, because brass is kind of expensive. You see, that's also where you see kind of that wealthy thing that he's associated with, because of brass. So, but you can have a regular fan as well. But if it just depends on what you're doing and trying to use it for.
Okay. Brother Zane says, what's Oshun's relation to Oba? I don't know if you're talking about the king or the Orisha. So could you clarify that, brother, before we go forward? In the meantime, Brother Gogan says, or sister, I don't know the sex of the person, but Gogan says, talk about some avatars of Oshun.
Okay, so from my experience, I'm not saying she doesn't have any type of other kind of like aspects. Like some people will say Logun Ede is kind of like an aspect or a male Oshun. I'm not in agreement with this fully. I know Logun Ede as her child. That's the offspring of Ashun and Obatala.
So that's one you were talking about earlier when you said they had many children. He's one of those.
Right, children. He's one of those that happens to be recognized as Norisha. Because you can actually receive Logun Ede. You can initiate to Logun Ede. I'm not saying all her their children you can do that with, but that one definitely. And then in some other traditions, it's not always those two that are of that that are the mother and father of Logun Ede. But for the most part, this is what you typically hear. But I really don't I shouldn't say I don't conform to aspects of her. I just don't really hear. Most of the Orisha, like in Lukumi, where they have different aspects of for several of the different Orisha, in my opinion, you don't find that as much in Isheshe. It's not as common. Now, that's not to say it's not there. A very good example of this, and probably the epitome of the example of this, is Obatala. Because Obatala, depending on whether it's an avatar, a child, a reincarnation, or a separate divinity that's related to Obatala, sometimes it's very hard to tell with him. So you do have that. Even with Eshu, we don't necessarily have aspects or what we might call roads in Isheshe are more Eshus that are made to perform a particular function. Like you can have let's say an Eshu Awure, which is an Eshu that draws in good fortune, rather than just like a standard Eshu or an Eshu Odara that's just used for worship. So we do have roads for Eshu, but those are a little different. They're not like aspects, Now there might be other Orishas that might have that same kind of strangeness like Obatala, but I don't see that with Oshun. At least I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Brother Zane was talking about the Orisha Oba. Is there a relation with Ashun and Oba?
Other than what that I know of, that you typically hear when it comes to Shango, Oba, Ashun, and Oya, when it comes to them being all wives of Shango. In the famous story that's even in Nigeria, I believe, of where Oba cuts off her ear. I believe it's Ashun that tricked her into doing this. So there is some type of I'm trying to remember. Like that, I don't think you can put them together. Like their pot shouldn't be together or something like that. They should be separate from one another. There is something that some type of relationship that's kind of like they don't get along, if my memory serves me correctly. But I don't remember the ins and outs of it. But it has to do within that relationship of Shango, Oba, Ashun, Oya, and where Ashun convinced her, in a sense, to slice her ear and feed it to her, to Shango, which actually got basically her rejected completely. Oba is actually the principal wife of Shango.
Wow.
Where Oya is actually the junior. She's the bottom one. But Oya became the favorite of Shango. That's why you hear about her all the time.
Interesting. Is there a relation with Ashun and a buzzard?
I'm going to say yes, but it's hard, at least for me. It's not a cut and dry to say that she is a vulture, but there does seem to be, in a sense, that
vulture story. I get it.
Right. There does seem to be some type of relationship between her and the vulture, especially when it comes to messaging and delivering of messages. But, I'm going to stop it right there. She may have more. There may be other literature, but the stuff that I have seen really has to do with a more of the messenger aspect of her, or what used to be more of a messenger aspect of her, and where the vulture is also a messenger per se.
Understood. Are there any more questions from the chat? These are good questions, you guys. Thank you for coming out and asking these questions. I forgot that a buzzard was a vulture for a second, so I was a little confused.
You were a little confused.
What? And I was like, oh, that's
As a good friend of mine used to say, she got that buzzard look. Can't kill nothing, won't nothing die.
You crazy man. Well, the last thing, I got a question for the audience. What are some other Orisha or topics that you guys want to see us, cover? Are there any things that you guys? Okay, we got a question. Is there an association with Ashun and Wasp?
Not that I'm aware of.
Me either. And brother Rob, we did go over the relationship with Eshu and Ashun earlier in the broadcast. So if you rewind, we go over that relation. Brother Iniharet, Brother Sean, member of the Masi, says any history or any historical jewels regarding Ashun or anything in her historical background that you consider very important?
I don't remember the ins and outs of it, but the city of Oshogbo, um, in its founding, there was actually two hunters that founded it. I cannot remember their name, but the historical reference that I really wanted to point out there is um, the city of Oshogbo is actually protected by Oshun because when they went there, they made a pact with them. The two people, the hunter and the other hunter. So there's a founder and co-founder. That founded and co-founded Oshogbo actually made a pact with Ashun, and that pact would, she did not want them building in the grove. So this is why it's not in the grove, and because now they protected the grove, Oshun will not allow war to ever reach Oshogbo. And this is why Oshogbo has really not been touched by war. As far as an historical an account, to the best of my knowledge, I'm probably leaving out a whole lot of stuff just for time and to make it a whole lot shorter. And then a lot of this stuff is not fresh in my memory, but definitely that's one of the things I would point out, that there is a pact made between Ashun and the people of Oshogbo. Because they did not build in the grove, that Oshun would protect them, because they asked permission. And this is why Oshogbo has not seen war.
Interesting.
Trying to think of any other. The king itself, of Oshogbo, has a lot to do with Ashun, and even his crown has a fish on it. So there is some relevance there too, and some ceremonies. I'm not too familiar with it anymore. It's been like I said, it's been a long time since I've done Oshogbo history. I mean, I've learned about it, studied it, but it's been a long time.
Okay, Brother Kayal says, I have a question about Oduduwa. What is his origin? I keep hearing he was a Nubian warrior that founded Ife. Although that's not the topic for today, would you be comfortable in doing a Oduduwa show?
I wouldn't have a problem with it, but after the paid class I'm going to put out for the history is really going to talk about Oduduwa. Very,
go ahead.
Yeah, in depth. Actually, I'll be putting out. We have and I'll put it up on my Facebook. With more details probably coming this week. But I'll be doing a paid class on the 9th. This one's going to be about the Obi Obata. Actually, Obi in general, just not the Obi Obata. It's not going to be focused on divination, but more the diversity of the Obi. We will talk about divination, though. The diversity of the different systems of the different styles of it. But that's going to be on the 9th. The next class, probably follow about a month after that, maybe 3 or 4 weeks after that, is going to be the history class, where I will talk about Oduduwa, his origins, or the direction. For those who understand what I mean by that, instead of origin, I say the direction. The direction for which he came, more of his origin. Because his origin can be debated depending on who you talk to, what group of people you talk to. The only really true thing we have is that he came from the East. But most likely, he probably came from the old Edo kingdom, just to answer somewhat of his question. That's where it seems to have the most proof validated that we can actually kind of check. Story kind of matches up. But every town is going to have their own version of what happened, so it makes it incredibly hard to try to trace back an oral tradition.
And to be just to help folks out, or brother Kayal, the Edo Kingdom is now in what we would call Benin City in Nigeria, not the country of Benin. Benin City in Nigeria. Trust me, that tripped me up early in my studies. So I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I did. Brother Morpheus says, how does a person get initiated in the system? We did a video about how a Orisha is chosen for the betterment of your life. That's on this channel. If you go back and watch that video, we give all that information in that video, brother. So as Brother Baba Oguniran just said, paid class coming up on the 9th. I put the name of his Facebook page, which is Ile Aro, in the comments. So sign up for the class, get to learn more history about the Yoruba people, get to learn more things that you want to learn. And if, after learning, you want to take those next steps, you'll know a guy, as they say. How much will that class be, Baba?
Right now, there's some things I still want to discuss, but it's not going to be any more than $25.
$25. Spend more than that on gas. So please support my Baba in that endeavor as we continue to put out good information. I'm going to take this as the last question. Does the worship in Orisha society, specifically Oshun, does it come with specific disciplines and demeanor? Well, all of them come with specific disciplines.
Right.
You can't do what you want. I can answer that.
All of them. Right.
And demeanor, you want to take that
one? Well, as far as the type of demeanor for one should come when approaching Oshun, I wouldn't say there should be a particular type. I should say there's certain things you probably shouldn't do. But Oshun is very, in my opinion, very flexible. Oshun's not one of those people that are going to kind of like, it's like, get the hell out of Dodge, say what you got to say. You can actually take your time and pray. Like, for like Ogun, for example, it's very much to the point. State your case, give me what I need, go. Shango is that way too. What do you want? State it, give me what you need, go. So they're very upfront. Not a whole lot of time for like whining or complaining. Eshu's like that too. Eshu's very much, he doesn't like any kind of form of weakness. So there are certain ways that you should approach certain divinities, especially in your demeanor when you come forth to them and what you're trying to do and sometimes pray for. So yes, Oshun, you can sit and pray. It could be lengthy. You can talk about problems, but you wouldn't necessarily do that for like Ogun or Shango, And then there are exceptions, but for the most part, Oshun's very easygoing. I don't really want to say give away to how you approach her, but as long as it's not in a disrespectful way, you should be fine. But there's something I do want to make mention before we go, as far as some of the diversity with Oshun when it comes to water.
Okay.
Some traditions of Oshun do not use water in their worship. Whoa. Some of them do. So this will be strange for a lot of people when they're so used to taking coconuts out of water for various different Orisha, the sprinkling, for various different Orisha that you do. The way that I'm actually taught to do Oshun, we don't use water. There's no water anywhere. There's no water in the pot. That's just not what we use. So, and like I said, with some traditions, they are. I just wanted to bring that up because I've had that question asked me probably a couple of times, is water supposed to be used? Is it not supposed to be used? Because there are a few books that talk about, you shouldn't sacrifice water to water. It really all depends on the tradition. But I will say this, from my understanding, at least in Oshogbo, I can't speak of everywhere in Oshogbo, but I think in Oshogbo, they don't use water. And then in the KT territory, in our origins, I don't think they use water either.
Interesting.
As far as like to have the OB in or that bowl of water there. Yeah, it's not there.
Worship.
Now
Okay.
her water pot may be there, but that's different altogether.
If you want to learn more about worship or what we're talking about, you definitely have to take Baba Ogundiran's class. As I put his Facebook name in the chat, Iliaro, or if you're having trouble getting a hold of him, you can always get a hold of me. So that's going to do it for today. Hope everybody learned something about Yeye Ashun. You got any words, Baba?
No, I hope everyone continues to have a good day, and I hope we'll be able to put more information out. Spread out some information to some other people, and try to provide some good knowledge for the the Isheshe community out there.
All right, as always, spirits is flying, pseudos is crying. They keep making excuses. We keep producing. We'll see you guys next time. We're out.